Okay, welcome everybody to week two of Through the Looking Glass, the 10-week conference brought to you by AHEAD. We'll be exploring topics concerning inclusion, disability support, and universal design for learning in FET and higher education over the next, I suppose we're at the next 8 weeks now because we're in week two at this stage. So thank you all for joining us today. We know that it's a very challenging time we're living through right now, and I know that everyone in the education world is really, really busy trying to react to this crisis and to give our students as much support as we can. So in that context, I really, really thank you for taking the time and making the time to join us both today and hopefully over the course of the coming weeks. My name is Dara Ryder. If you're unfamiliar with AHEAD and this is your first time engaging with us, welcome. I'm the CEO of AHEAD, and AHEAD is an organisation focused on creating inclusive environments in education and employment for people with disabilities. So just a little bit of housekeeping for you, all of you joining us today. There's a few ways that you can engage with each other and the panelists here today. The first I'm going to launch actually right now. So I'm just going to stop my share here now and launch a poll. So basically this poll is just to kind of gauge where the audience are at in terms of UDL. So I'm just asking you how much you know about UDL before today. Don't be shy if you know quite a lot. Don't be modest. So let us know. It'll help us to shape a bit more of what I'm going to say in the next few minutes before the guys come on. Um, oh, I can see that lots of people joining the poll now. So that's really, really useful. So the other ways you can engage with us today, there's a chat feature which you can find at the bottom of your Zoom window. So it's in there, you can engage with other participants in the session if you have comments you'd like to share. If you'd like to share maybe links with other participants in the section, you can do so there. So we might pick a few audience comments at the end of each finalist presentation as we move through just to feedback into the group. Towards the end of the session, we'll be asking you to participate in a question delivered via a platform called Mentimeter. So I would ask that if you have access to a second device on hand, for example, if you're watching on a laptop, but you also have a smartphone, that you keep that device nearby so that you can use it to engage with us at that point. If that all sounds a bit confusing, don't fear, we'll explain it in simple terms later on in the session. So before we start proceedings, I'd like to sincerely express AHEAD's thanks to the HEA for their continued support of our core activities. It's a relationship that goes back over a long, long time, and we simply couldn't do the good work that we do without their support. So in particular, Katrina, Neil and Mark in HEA Access have been really supportive of this late move to the conference in an online setting. So we wouldn't be able to bring you these sessions without their backing. So we're just going to have a look now at our poll results. I'm going to end polling and share with results with everybody. So there's a really nice mix in the room here. So 25% say have almost no knowledge of UDL and are here to learn. 45% say that they have a little bit of UDL knowledge but want to know a lot more. And there's a good portion of the room who are proper UDL aficionados. So I'm delighted to see that we have a really nice mix here. And that means there's space for us to learn from each other. So if there are resources and things that some of our more experienced colleagues would like to drop in the chat box, please do that and you can share. It's nice to see in the chat box that we have people joining us from all over Ireland and indeed the world. We have somebody from Chile I just see saying good morning there. We have Donegal, Ballinasloe, Blanchardstown, Cork, Carlow. So that is lovely to see. Um, so I'm going to stop those share results now. And just before we start, I think it's probably a good time to actually just take a little bit of a step back for those people who aren't too aware of UDL and what it's all about is just actually to give you a little bit of a background to it and a little bit of a background to the award that we're here to celebrate today. So I'm going to start. What is Universal Design for Learning and give you very much the whistle stop tour. So this is the 5-minute elevator pitch, if you like. So firstly, we're going to start with universal design. So universal design means the design of products, environments, programs and services to be usable by all people to the greatest extent possible without the need for adaptation or specialized design. That is the definition from the UNCRPD. That's the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. And basically what it does is it recognizes that nobody is average, and that if you're designing anything for the average, then you're actually designing for nobody. Whereas if you design to the edges of our society, then you're going to end up with something that's much more usable and that everybody's going to get the benefit of. So some examples from our daily lives that we think of in terms of universal design, things like the automatic door. Automatic doors designed for people with mobility issues, but actually especially anybody who's a parent who maybe wheels a buggy through a shopping centre regularly will know how valuable they are, especially when you've got bags of shopping. Maybe the delivery man who's carrying goods, maybe someone who's elderly who may not have the physical strength to open a door. So there's a whole host of people who benefit from that flexible design. When we apply the concept of universal design into the learning environment, a number of frameworks emerge, and the one we focus on predominantly here in ahead is UDL, which is the model provided by CAS in the United States. That's Universal Design for Learning. There is another of other models which will bring your practice in similar directions, but this is the one we're looking at here today. So basically, what is UDL? Well, the UDL developed by an organization called CAST in the US in the 1990s. So a research team there, and it's the research that's behind UDL comes from both the neurosciences and the learning sciences. So the neurosciences in CAST identified that there were three key networks of the brain that had to be stimulated in order for us to learn effectively. They are the effective networks in the center of the brain, and they govern the emotional part of our brain. So that's why do we want to learn? What's our motivation to learn? There's the recognition networks at the back of the brain, and they govern how we categorize information. So the what of learning, how do we categorize facts and different stimuli? And then finally, there's the strategic networks at the front of the brain, and they govern the how of learning. And that's really all about how we take that information that we've stored and use it effectively to get what we need to get done. So they're basically the sort of the neuroscience background to that. And they mapped that then with research in the learning sciences and came up with three basic principles. So there's the first principle is to provide multiple means of engagement. That's the why of learning, and that's all about, as I said, our motivation to learn. So why is it that our learners come into the classroom? How can we provide different ways to engage them in learning, to show them that they have agency in their own learning? There's the second principle, which is to provide multiple means of representation. So recognizing that our learners will absorb information differently, how can we provide them with different ways into the learning? So we use that by leveraging multimedia, experiential learning, and basically by providing variety in the delivery of learning. And then finally, the third principle, to provide multiple means of action and expression. And that's really all about how can we allow learners different ways to express and demonstrate what they know, and how can we support them to effectively plan their learning. So there's three core principles. They are broken down into 9 guidelines and measured by 31 checkpoints. We're not going to get into any of that now. There's a link which is in the slide deck, and that's on the website with the rest of the learning materials. People can explore further later. You can also explore more at ahead.ie/UDL in terms of getting more about the framework. And if any of you, our FET colleagues, are out there today, just to highlight that last week we launched the conceptual framework of universal design for learning for the Irish further education and training sector. So that's a publication launched by Solus and Ahead, and that's really basically exploring key concepts of universal design and looking at what we, particular concepts that we might need to look at for the implementation of UDL for FET. So they're basically feeding into development of UDL for FET guidelines, which we are also working on and will be released later on this year. So UDL, it's just to link it really to the theme of the conference. I would very much see UDL as a lens for practitioners to look at their own practice through. It's not a prescriptive framework. It's not about you do X, Y, and Z and then you become inclusive. Rather, it's leveraging the knowledge and experience that practitioners have of their own setting, of their own learners. It's kind of highly critical that the learner actually, or that the practitioners engage with the framework in that context, that it's them who are the experts and that the framework is helping to guide their practice and to effectively leverage their knowledge and experience. And really that's where that leads me to today, because I suppose in Ahead we bang on a lot about UDL. We're big advocates of it, and sometimes when you begin like this with the theory of UDL, you can get met with some kind of blank faces as people don't really understand what that means in terms of practice. And today we're going to look at some really, really exciting practice around UDL. And we have 3 practitioners here demonstrating that in the final of the John Kelly Award for Universal Design for Learning in Further and Higher Education. So it would be remiss of me at this stage not to pay tribute to Professor John Kelly himself. I hope he's watching here today, but just to say that the award is named after Professor John Kelly, who was one of the founding members of AHEAD. He was registrar of UCD at that stage and was a pivotal figure in supporting students with disabilities to organise and to put together this organisation, along with a number of other very strong student advocates like Jerry Ellis. So just to pay tribute to him before we move on. So this the nature of this award is that it's aimed at celebrating the emerging commitment to UDL. It's not here to celebrate the scholars, the people who have hundreds of research articles, etc. It's kind of celebrating the people who are making their emerging commitment to UDL by getting stuck into the framework and really producing innovative practice as a result of it. So it's actually awarded to the most innovative graduates of our digital badge for universal design in teaching and learning. This digital badge is part of the National Forum for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning's Open Access Badge Initiative, so it's one of many badges. And the design team behind the badge was AHEAD and UCD Access and Lifelong Learning. And just to give you a little overview of how the badge model works, and this model is replicated across many of the badges in the forum's Open Access Initiative. So basically, AHEAD and UCD Access and Lifelong Learning developed the course materials. We also developed a facilitator's pack, which is a guide on how to use those course materials to roll out a course. And we developed a train the trainer course, which is essentially a guide on using the facilitator's pack, more or less. So every year we run the national UDL badge course. We run it twice most years, and we've actually got one in train right now. So if there is UDL badge participants on this session, hello, and I hope you get something out of it today. So we run the national course. We also run the train the trainer add-on, and that enables us to train up people then to actually roll the course out in their own setting for their own colleagues later on down the line. So the final stage then is that the trained facilitators run a local UDL badge rollout for their colleagues, and all of the participants, whether they take the badge with us directly or with a local facilitator, will receive the National Forum's badge at the end of the day. So the badge actually involves 25 hours over 10 weeks, and that's broken down into 5 online multimedia modules that have reflective exercises built in, 3 course webinars, which are more kind of informational webinars, setting out what's happening on the course, 4 peer triad meetings, which are a key factor in both our course and other National Forum courses. The peer triads are essentially small groups of 3 or 4 students that work together throughout the course, and we provide them with structured discussions at a kind of point of need in the course. When they learn about a new topic or skill, they then go and discuss it and pull it apart as a group. And then the final piece of their course is the UDL redesign activity, where they make a real-time UDL implementation as part of their course. And you're going to see the results of that today with our 3 finalists. So in 2019, we actually issued 94 digital badges for UDL issued by 5 facilitators. 2019 was the first full year of our Train the Trainer course and our digital badge course. So we also trained 27 future facilitators across 18 different institutions and ETBs, which will then be able to go and roll out the badge this year for themselves to their colleagues. And we're also doing 2 national rollouts ourselves this year. So the John Kelly Award brings us to the award on the final here today. So how it works, we have 3 judges. One of them is joining us here today. That's Terry Maguire, the Director of the National Forum for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning. And Terry is acting as the chair of the judging panel, and she'll be representing the panel online here in this session today. We have Mark Glynn, who's the head of Teaching and Learning Enhancement in DCU. And we have Michelle Mitchell, who's our student representative from NUI Galway. And Mark and Michelle are watching this session at the moment. The finalists, who you all want to meet, I'm sure, and are eager to get started with, are Catherine Deegan from TU Dublin, Laura Hegarty from Galway Mayo Institute of Technology, and Jennifer Lynch from Marino College of Further Education. Terry, if you wouldn't mind unmuting your video on your mic, please, when you get a chance there, that would be great. And also, Catherine, if you could begin to get ready to share your screen and your slides. I'm just going to end my own share. How are you, Terry? How are you doing in isolation?
I'm doing very well, thank you, but looking forward to the afternoon. I remember last year how exciting it was just to see the impact that the actual badge had on the practice on the ground, especially for students.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and it's one of the elements today. I suppose we call this a final, but really it's actually a celebration of good work, um,
Yeah,
and it's not. I mean, the competitive element of it is is there, I suppose, to some extent, but we're very much focused on the celebration of good work. And one of the great things about this session is that we managed to capture three excellent participants and kind of capture the good work that they're doing, so we can then share it. So these will all be videoed and captioned and then shared with the community, I suppose. So just to give you a sense of how it's going to work today, what we're going to do is take a presentation first from Catherine, then Terry will come back in, give us a little comment. We might take some comments from the floor, from the chat box, and then we'll move on to the following presentation, and we'll move through like that. Um, our other judges, Mark and Michelle, are also watching here today. So at the end of the session today, we'll all log off, but Terry still has work to do. So she'll join Mark and Michelle in a private online judging meeting where they'll make the decision and discuss the different final contributions. So finally, then we'll actually be announcing the award on Monday via social media, and we'll have Terry who'll have a little video prepared to announce that award on Monday. So that's how it's going to work. Terry, if you wouldn't mind just muting your video and audio, we're going to jump in. Catherine, are you there? Would you be ready to share your screen with us, Catherine?
Yeah, I'm just getting ready to share now. Dara, just 1 second.
That's great. Just while Catherine is getting prepared there, I just want to let everyone in the crowd know that I'm going to be giving a kind of 2 minute signal. Everybody, all of our finalists have 10 minutes to make their presentation. I'm going to be giving a little 2 minute warning, which is via tambourine. So just in case you think I'm being very, very ignorant, that's all been prearranged with our finalists. They know, and it's just to help them along, to give them a sense of where they are at. How are you doing there, Catherine? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, just some issues with sharing at the moment, Dara.
Sure, no problem. So one of the things about this 10-week online conference, I think everybody understands the kind of crazy situation we're all in. We're all delivering from home. So there may at times be dogs barking in the background, children screaming, potentially all sorts of other interruptions. I was sharing with the guys in the pre-session here that worryingly my cat has learned how to open my office door here. So he has been appearing in meetings throughout the week and may well appear in the John Kelly session. So Catherine, if you're having some issues there, would you like us to come back to you and potentially move on to
No,
the
I
conversation?
think it should be ready to share now.
Okay, great.
If you just tell me if it's coming up.
Uh, haven't shared yet, but you might need to just press the share button and
Yeah,
then follow up.
I've pressed it a few times.
Okay. No, we're not seeing anything yet. So what I might do, Catherine, if it's okay, Jennifer, would you be ready
Oh,
to?
hang on,
Uh,
it's ready. It's
oh
there.
yeah, here we go.
It
Yeah,
should be
there we go.
going. Is
Perfect.
it showing in the right view?
Yeah, so I'm seeing the your actual PowerPoint screen rather than the slideshow at the moment.
Okay, it
But
should be.
it's okay if you want to end the share and pick the other screen. I think it was screen two you had said originally. We're seeing presenter view at the moment.
Okay. Is that right?
Perfect. I can see that now perfectly. Yeah.
Okay. And let me show the video as well.
Great. Well, whenever you're ready, you take it away there.
Okay. So, hi everybody. It's great, and I'd like to thank Ahead for getting back online so quickly and giving us a chance to present our work, because it was great to have a chance to take part in the digital badge, and it was really great to have this chance to come and present our work. I chose to present to work on. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Catherine, and I've worked for more years than I care to admit in teaching and learning on technology modules. I'm sorry, Dara. I'm actually having some issues with this. It's not actually going at the moment. I'm having a few issues
That's
with
okay, Catherine.
connection. Can I come back to this?
Yeah, no problem. Listen, let me just see. Laura, would you be ready to perhaps step in and do your presentation?
Yes, I can.
I'm sorry.
Start the video and
So, Catherine, just while Laura is presenting there, if you wouldn't mind just trying to resolve some of those issues for yourself in the back end, then we'll come back to you. And sorry, Laura, for rushing you and jumping you in at this stage.
that's
Uh,
okay. Is that okay? You can see my screen now?
that is perfect. We can see your
Yeah.
screen. Thank you, Laura.
Okay, no problem. So hi everyone, and thanks for coming to this. I'm sure everyone's quite busy in their own right. So to introduce myself, my name is Laura Hegarty. I'm a lecturer at GMIT, and as part of my presentation, I'm going to talk to you about what I embedded as part of my teaching and learning, I suppose, as UDL when I was introduced to this course. So just to tell you a little bit about me, so currently I'm a lecturer in GMIT, both on the Mayo and Galway campus, and a little bit about my education background. I did 5 years of, I suppose, electronic and computer engineering, and then I was working with Ericsson then in Dublin, and I did a master's part-time while I was working full-time. So it was great to kind of get a little bit of an education, master's on top of all the technical work I did. So I worked with Ericsson. I traveled the world teaching, I suppose, a lot of engineers in the telco industry. So quite a high kind of, how would I say, a challenging job in the sense you're working with engineers who are quite highly skilled in their areas around the globe and teaching very different cultures, different backgrounds. And then I suppose I moved on then purely because of travel. Only reason I left, I saw my roadmap for the next few years and it was a lot of travel. So then I moved and got a job with NCBI, the National Council for the Blind in Dublin in Drumcondra. So I worked as a system administrator and an IT trainer, and a very different role, completely different target audience in the sense that they now had, or I was challenged with them having a visual impairment. So I went from teaching, as I said, engineers in their area of expertise to now use an assistive technology to be able to teach my service users in their own environment, whether it was at school, whether it was at home, whether it was at work. And depending on the assistive technology, so assistive technology is an aid to allow, in my case, visually impaired service users to, I suppose, use technology just like the rest of us. So if they were completely blind, they'd use a screen reader. If they were low vision, they would use a magnifier or a zoom piece of software. So there are many types. So that would mean that I could go to their houses and I would be able to show them how to surf the internet with the use of assistive technology, where I would allow them to be able to communicate with friends and family around the world. So it was very empowering. I loved my job so much, but my way of teaching was very, very different. So it just meant that I ended up teaching sometimes people who didn't even know how to turn on a computer, and obviously vision being their obstacle. So it was very challenging, and I had to completely change my way of teaching because I now had a different audience. So I thoroughly enjoyed my job, loved it, but it was in Dublin and I'm a woman from the West. So I made my way back to the West and now working in GMIT and CompuPack as well, was in Sligo. It was where I lectured online as well. So that's kind of a little bit of a background about myself. But what I introduced as part of this UDL course was it was a module based on the Galway campus called Digital Business. So they were third year students. There was 259 of them, and they all shared a module across many different programs. So I had BIS, which would be more technical students, marketing and sales, agribusiness, accounting and finance, and business. So the learning environment that we use is Moodle. That's our learning environment. So I was quite aware I had a large audience of different cultural backgrounds through foreign students, Erasmus. So I knew I would be teaching, quite a varied degree of cultural differences and cultural understandings. I knew then I would have had students with different learning abilities and learning styles. So that was something I was quite aware of. And then different demographics, from students just out of college or school to older mature students who returned to college. So my audience was very, very varied and I had a lot of them. So as part of my course, I wanted to implement something but be very open-minded about my audience. So what you're seeing here is just a screenshot of the interface for my module. And the way I designed it was I literally went by week. So for example, here highlighted week 5. So that would mean we're currently in week 5, or the content was inside week 5. And then I would upload images that would relate, for example, continuous assessments, resources. So I would put in images there that visually, in a way that they're able to look at it and kind of capture what's behind that topic, so to say. So I tried to keep my interface quite simple, and as we moved through the weeks, students were able to, you know, find where they were within the Moodle environment. So I tried to keep it as simple as possible. So what did I do? What changes did I make? So one big task was I had a lot of students and I wanted to give them a choice. So they all designed. I had 259 websites where they all designed them for me using WordPress. But I wanted to give students the choice where when they were to present their website to me for the 40% at the end of the year, I wanted to ask them if they were given a choice, what would they choose? Okay, so I created a forum. So I had 190 students who participated. So you can see here in the kind of orangey color, the show and tell. So I basically had three choices: show and tell using an overhead projector. So I thought maybe students who would have a little bit more confidence might like to use an overhead projector in front of that group. The show and tell would be where I would move from workstation to workstation within a lab environment. And then the students, I would assess the students there and then. Okay, so really only the two people either side of the student would kind of hear what they've done as part of their website. And then the other one, I wanted to cater for an audience who perhaps might be that little bit more shy, but you know, quite competent in their area. So it was where I gave them a choice that if you wanted to create a short video and upload it, you don't need to present, but yet every one of them, no matter what choice you selected, you all had to present to the same learning outcome. So that was the feedback I got. 16 wanted to do a show and tell using an overhead projector. 149 was to do the kind of workstation in the lab environment, and then 22 opted to select a video. So because I had a lot of interest in it, I said, okay, I'm going to roll this out. And in my CA topic within Moodle, I had created kind of, or I divided the different, depending on whichever student selected whichever group. So this first one here, this is an overhead of, you know, the topic and the learning outcomes of the website. This one here is where students would upload their website to me, again, giving them the date when they needed to do it. If you wanted to create the workstation, you needed to upload it in here. And then if you wanted to create your website for a video submission, you upload it here. So I tried to kind of keep systematic and simple as much as I could. Now, what I did mean is for the guys who created a video, I did need to go off and create little videos to help them create the video themselves. So for example, I created a video using PowerPoint, using an overhead, a video how to use PowerPoint, which was 7 minutes. A video how to use Screenomatic, again, 6-7 minutes. So it demonstrated very logically how to go about creating videos. And then the final video was how to upload your video for submission. So that was kind of content I created and made available for the students who selected the video submission choice. And what I also did was I added the captions on the video, okay? So that allowed them to be able to, I suppose, read it as well as view the video. I also embedded individual learning plan for students because they had all said they've so much CAs, so much scheduling. So this was a template that I gave them that they could reuse over and over again as part of their learning. Okay, so it was something they found useful. I also created multiple means of representation. So it meant where I uploaded PowerPoint slides, I also uploaded PDFs and Word documents. So depending on your device, depending on the user, they all had, I suppose, a choice of having content in many different formats. So just having that representation for them. So coming to the very end, after I implemented all of it and the students did their representation of these, presented their websites to me, I asked them, I did a little survey at the end to ask them, did other lecturers implement UDL within GMIT? And some of them said yes, 21%, 16 said no, 6 said maybe. Question 2 is, do you think students should have the input into how they are assessed for CAs? And you can see there quite clearly, 39 of the students very strongly said yes, they should have an input into how they are assessed. So that kind of gave me a lot to think about. So the website assessment, all students had a choice using the overhead projector, creating the video, or doing the workstation. So I asked them, was it something that helped them with their assessment? And again, 43% yes. And then the last question I asked them was, for the module, do you think universal design was applied? So content design, choice of documents, videos, captions, etc. And again, I got 43 replies. So coming to the end, this was some, I suppose, feedback results that I got from students saying that, you know, they enjoyed it. It was nice to have that choice. It was a progressive idea. But one of them that really stood out to me was this one here, where one student said, I felt that giving us a choice made it more personal and adapted to students' learning styles and abilities. I felt that it allowed us to challenge ourselves in different ways. I felt like I was taking ownership. So the feedback was very good and positive, and it gave me a lot in return for the work I did. So in summary, this has impacted for me hugely. A lot of work was done in the sense of creating this for my students, probably because of the amount of students I had, but I provided means of representation, means of expression and engagement. Did a lot of work myself. I continue to do this, and I provide it for all the rest of my students, where I give them a choice of representation when it comes to content. And I also attained the facilitation badge. So this is certainly something I would love to roll out within GMIT. So my last slide is really just a reflection to, I guess, ask the audience that if you were to reflect on your knowledge and what you, I suppose, have gained from by the end of this session and what you understand by UDL, how would you implement this into your practice? And it's just something to think about. In my kind of knowledge, I would say take little micro steps. Don't think of this as a huge challenge you need to do straight away. It's a building block, and you do it over time. And finally, just to say, UDL, in my opinion, should be part of our pedagogy and not think of it in relation to a disability, that we should think universal in how we design for our audience. So just to thank Dara hugely for the opportunity to facilitate or to be here today, and for the course, as well as Lisa Padden. And I cannot forget my trio, or my triad peers. So I had Liz Hanley and Tom O'Shaughnessy, which was my group that I would have worked with, and then another colleague, Sharon Boyle, as well from GMIT Mayo, who also participated. So just to say thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura. That was really, really
Oh,
interesting.
that was okay.
Well done.
Jesus, 10
Well done.
minutes goes so fast. Okay.
Terry, if you wouldn't mind just unmuting your video and audio here, just to say, I think it's really interesting. First of all, that you're talking about choice and assessment at this time. I think this is, you know, it's
Yeah.
certainly, there's lots of conversations happening. I'm getting a lot of phone calls which are all about this, and really, I think it's so important that we're flexible with our students at this time because of all sorts of barriers. Disability just being one, but the technological barriers that, you know, even we've seen here today, it's not easy adapting to this new reality. So Terry, would you like to come in there, and if the audience have a comment or two, please do drop them into the chat and I'll try and pick up one.
First of all, Laura, really, really well done. If we were together, we would be doing this. So we're doing a virtual this for you, and especially when you came in when you weren't expected to at the beginning of this, you had to come in a bit early. I think it was obvious from what you were doing that you brought your broad experience from teaching your engineers to actually teaching those with a visual impairment, and that's influenced your practice, I think, in very positive ways. I loved your use of the images rather than having to look at the text within how you set up your Moodle interface. I thought that was really good. And I thought, I suppose, the choices that you gave students gave them real opportunities to both in terms of how they wanted to learn, but also in terms of how they wanted that learning assessed. So well done. You've done a fantastic job. And I think, to be honest with you, the results that the pie charts that you showed in the end actually demonstrated very clearly that it's had a huge impact. So congratulations.
Okay. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you very much, Laura and Terry, if you wouldn't mind just muting your audio and video there. And we're going to actually go to Jennifer next while Catherine just works on her issues in the background there. So just while you're setting up there, Jennifer, just some comments from the room. Really, I think there's just a lot of love in the room for Laura's presentation, saying a lot of thanks and saying super presentation, great visualizations. And I think there's a particularly nice one here from Catherine herself, who says thanks for stepping in on that and doing such a great job at the last minute. So, Jennifer, if you're ready now to join us, that would be great, and we might move on to the next presentation. Thanks a
Yeah,
million,
hi
Jennifer.
Dara.
Thank you for
No problem at all.
jumping in. So, if you want to go ahead there, I'll mute myself.
No problem. So just moving these over here. So hi everybody. My name is Jennifer Lynch and I'm a teacher in Marino College Further Education. So just a little bit of background about myself. I have a background in the dental sector and the medical sector. And I also have a background in the disability sector. So at the moment, I'm currently doing a postgraduate course in UCD, in the Innovation Academy in UCD, and I'm studying entrepreneurship and innovation. And I suppose this course, along with the UDL course that I did, really complemented my teaching practice throughout the year. And I really saw the skills that I could implement throughout the year. So just to give you a little bit of background about Marino College, because it would be unfair if I didn't. Marino College is a further education college, and we cater for a diverse range of students, students that are mature students that are coming back to education, um, students who would like to transition onto further education in the future. Actually, students who have been to third level education and it wasn't for them often come back to Marino as well. And also students who English isn't their first language. So we've a wide variety of courses from a level 4 back to education course up to level 5. And we've recently developed a higher level 6 dental nursing traineeship, which we hope to run out in September 2020. So that's really exciting for us in Marino. So just a little bit about the course. So the course that I chose to implement the UDL into was a health service management level 6 course. And the module that I chose was a disability awareness module. So according to the module descriptor, the students have to design 5 learning activities. They have to work with a person or a group of people with disabilities. And then at the end of this, they have to produce a 3,500 word essay. So the reason that I chose this module was that the class was a very diverse group. 50% of the class, English was not their first language. Some students had print disabilities or mild general learning disabilities. So I just thought that I could implement this really well into the program. So I just love this slide. We all think differently. Why should we all learn the same way? And this is what I loved about incorporating the UDL or the framework and the philosophy into my teaching. So it's about removing any barriers to learning and to give the students equal opportunities to succeed. So the why of learning, so this really interested me, and as an educator and a student myself, because I'm a constant learner, I really wanted to reflect on why students learn, like what makes them walk outside your classroom after 50 minutes and be encouraged enough or interested enough to go on and look at a TED Talks video or to have a look at a YouTube video. So what motivates students to become, more independent and motivated students? So when I started the UDL course in September, I explained to the students about the UDL framework and they were really interested. And I told them that I wanted to integrate it into the disability awareness module. So we actually looked at the framework together. I asked the question, why are we learning about disabilities and what do we want to learn? So the feedback from the students was that, they wanted to understand difficult concepts. They wanted to know about the words diversity, inclusion, advocacy. They didn't just want to see it as words on a page. They had heard of the words, but they just didn't understand what they were. They wanted to eliminate preconceived ideas about the disability, preconceived ideas that they had themselves of what the disability sector was and what society have as well. And also they want an authentic student experience as well. Um, so what I did was I contacted Rosalind Park College. Now, for those of you who don't know about Rosalind Park College, it's part of the National Learning Network. It's an amazing college. It teaches different courses from a level 3 up to level 5. So, and all the students in Rosalind Park have different disabilities. So the culinary students agreed to work with us. We were really lucky, and they were about to do a team working module. And it was important for me that not only my students benefit, but also the students from Rosalind Park College benefited. And I wanted us all to achieve different learning outcomes together. So, you know, it was a little bit of an experiment as well. So straight away, well, after a few icebreaker games, we were able to apply the UDL principles. So the students, you know, straight away, they started learning through collaboration. They were fostering, you know, really good community spirit together. The students themselves came up with multiple means of engagement. They were the ones that decided on the weekly meeting. They had they wanted interactive collaborative workshops, and luckily the culinary students offered to facilitate that, and they did lots of different cookery demonstrations for us. But their ultimate goal at the end of the 5 weeks or activities was to raise money for a charity, and they both decided to come together and choose a charity themselves, so, you know, without any input from me. So I have to say, I can really attest the fact that this framework works. We had full attendance every single week, and that is not easy to do from both sides of students. Like, so both sets of students always came every single week. And in fact, some of my students asked, could they do extra hours? They wanted to work with the students and do extra hours, which was great because they can incorporate that into their work experience module. So really they did become purposeful students and really, really motivated. So for like, it was an authentic experience for both students. The colouring students were assessed on their team working module, so they got the opportunity to, you know, showcase their skills, and they're a talented bunch. And my students, the supervisory students, they were able to organise their 5 different activities, and they could also use the hours and cross-modulate as part of their work experience. So really, the why of learning, I think, was covered here. So the next part of the UDL framework was the how of learning, and how could the students translate this experience that they gained into a written piece of work and show evidence for the purpose of their assessment. So what I did was I created a poll online, and as part of the action expression, I asked the students, would you prefer a different method of assessment with regards to writing the journal? A lot of students do struggle with sitting down and writing. So 73%, surprise, surprise, said they would like an alternative assessment method. And then I also asked them as well, if you were offered a different assessment method, what would you choose? So I offered them one, the use of a PowerPoint and voiceover, a presentation done through a video, or a portfolio with pictures, videos, and text. So 73% of the students said that they would love to do a portfolio and a video. So I suppose after reflecting on the feedback from what the students gave me, I gave them the option of submitting their assignments through creating a portfolio of images and videos. So the majority of students reached their word count without even realizing it, and with a lot less pressure because they had that visual cues that they can go by. So what impact did the incorporation UDL have on the students? So it did have a big impact. So the students felt that the experience was really relevant and added to the value of the careers that they wanted to pursue. So a lot of the students do want to go into disability sector. So by engaging in peer-to-peer feedback during sessions, it enabled them to then reflect on their journal. and implement that into their portfolio. So at the beginning, both sets of students did find it challenging standing up in front of people you don't know and doing a presentation or doing it online. It really did take them out of their comfort zone. But they felt that through collaboration together, they formed a sense of community together. And it made both of their modules seem a little bit more relevant. So the students did become very resourceful and knowledgeable. There was very little input from myself or the other student. It was a very much a student-led approach. The supervisory students learned new skills. Some of them had never even baked a cake or baked a scone. So the culinary students taught them how to do that. They taught each other about budgets and planning. That was really important for the bake sale, and they taught each other new ways of learning through doing. So they really did become experiential learners by learning by doing. So another principle of the UDL is how the learning has become strategic and driven. So the ultimate goal for the students really was to complete the assignment, but it definitely became much more than that. The students really wanted to raise money for charity, and they managed to raise €350 for Pieta House. That was their charity of choice, and they're really, really proud of that. So I think that like engaging in this course has taught me that UDL is more than offering information in different formats. It's about the student-centered approach, making material accessible and interesting, and understanding that like technology can be a really wonderful tool, but if you combine that with an authentic student experience, it can be really powerful for both the teacher and the student, and really make the student motivated and interested. So just a quick bit of feedback. So this is the feedback that I got from some of the students. The students of Roslyn Park College really showcased the skills they learned regardless of their disabilities and the stereotypes society put upon them. I'm so grateful to have collaborated with them. And another student said, in planning and working with the students in Roslyn Park College, I've learned a lot about working in a team, inclusion, and the acceptance of people with disabilities. When I think of students from NLN, the words that come to mind are listening, community, self-direction, and talent. So like, I think that you'll all agree that students involved learned more than just words on a page. So just briefly, how I'm going to incorporate UDL into Merino College and into my teaching practice. So I also did the facilitation badges, and for anyone from Merino who's watching, a lot of them have expressed interest. So we're going to roll out the facilitation badge. I would love to do another postgraduate or further education on UDL, because I just think it's just so powerful. And the final thing is, which is really exciting, I mentioned it earlier on, because I was involved in the creation of the dental nursing traineeship, I was one of the people involved in it. We did write UDL into the fabric of the curriculum. So going forward in September, UDL really will feature heavily for the new dental nursing traineeship program. So that'll be really exciting, and it's something very tangible. So I just want to say thanks to Dara and Ahead for putting on a really wonderful online course. It's actually one of the best online courses I've ever done. So if you're thinking about doing it, do it and get involved in it. So thanks a million.
Thank you, Jennifer. That's very, very kind words indeed. I have to say I'm really bowled over by your work. It's fantastic. I think you've really embraced that side of UDL where it's not just about access, and that's one of the reasons Ahead prefers this framework of UD in education, is that it's not just about access, it's also about developing the expertise of the learners themselves so that they can develop a mastery of learning, if you like. And I think that's what you're doing there in the work that you're doing. You're helping to create a mastery of learning, which is applicable in any aspect of their lives as they move forward as learners. Terry, if you wouldn't mind just unmuting your video and audio there, just as we go. And Catherine, if you could just prepare yourself to try that share again, that would be great. What do you think, Terry?
My first thought. Oh, well done, Jennifer. I suppose what struck me is that I love the idea that you actually took the opportunity to make sure your students understood what UDL was from the outset. I think,
Yeah.
getting that understanding for students is really important. And I love the cross-institution collaboration with the groups of students. And as you described it, you could see the students taking control of the groups of students taking control of their own learning, which is exactly the place that you actually want to be. And not only did you do that, you went on then to look at how you could actually look and give them choices of assessment, which I think was really good. And I love the way that they responded to that choices. But most importantly, I suppose, is I love your plan for the implementation across the whole institution and the building it into the whole strategy. So it's not going to go away. This isn't a once-off. So well done again. That was a really super piece of work.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jen.
I do think, just like a quick before I go, I do think for me at the start as well, it was kind of fear of how I was going to implement it into my practice, because it seems so big, but actually it's really easy to implement it into your practice. So yeah, like definitely it works.
Great. Listen, thanks a million, Jennifer. If you wouldn't mind just muting your video and audio, we might move on to Catherine, who I see has managed to share your screen. Catherine, thank you. Thank you for being so kind and getting yourself sorted there in the background.
Is this, can you see the slides,
Yep, I can
Darren?
see the slide. I can see the slides perfectly there, Catherine. Yeah,
Finally.
well done, well done.
Um,
And just to say before we move on, a few comments from the floor on Jennifer's piece there. Just, I think one of the themes that's running through is just that people really enjoyed that collaboration between the two courses and that they were able to learn from each other. And other thing that's jumping out from the comments is how far and wide people are coming to join us, which is really exciting that we're getting a chance to share this practice. People from Malta, from Chile, I see another from British Columbia in Canada there. So we're really getting a nice international audience here today. And so I think we're ready, Catherine, if you are, to pass over to you.
Okay, I'd like to say thank you very much for your patience, and thank you so much to the other two participants for jumping in. You're very good and very patient and really good for just jumping in and doing that. I will start again. My slides went blank and I was going to try and power through, but nobody has a memory that good to sustain that. So I'm afraid I just had to step out. I reintroduce myself. My name is Catherine. I've worked in TU Dublin, what is now TU Dublin, for more than 20 years. I was working on the Blanchardstown campus for a long time, and recently I've started working in the School of Electronic and Electrical Engineering. I've worked for a long time teaching technology-based subjects mainly, but last semester I had an opportunity to teach a research methods for business module. I'm very research active, actually working recently in the last few years on cognition, research into human cognition. So the UDL framework for a long time has been very, very interesting to me for that reason alone. But research and the method of doing research is very, very interesting for that reason. I do believe it's a core and a key, some would say a generic skill, at all levels of education, not just at higher and tertiary level. So moving on, the module in and of itself is a final year module, and usually is at the third level. But one of the biggest challenges with teaching it is that it tends to have a very arcane, very academic, for want of a better word, language. And this can be very off-putting to students. I've found it in talking to students over the years, tends to be quite intimidating. So one of the challenges for me as a teacher and a lecturer in it is to sort of bust the myths around the language and to simplify it for students and make it more accessible. And this is for all students. So the thing about it is that research methods, just as a generic skill, is about process. It's about teaching process, because the process is the same for everybody. It's just that the starting point, the idea, and the end point, the outputs of it, are often very, very different and hugely variable and very interesting for that reason. So we teach process. And for very accessible, I found this book by Catherine Dawson, which articulates the 5 W's. The what, the why, the who, the where, is a very, very good textbook to use for that reason. And this is a new copy because I keep loaning it to students and never getting it back. It's great. And the 5 W's, or actually the 6 W's it's become now, is what I use to reflect. Before I entered in and put a UDL lens on this module, I turned that back on the module and looked at it. And I did that with the students on the very first class with the students when they came in. I turned that on the module, on its content. And I said to the students, well, I looked at who the students were, and I said, who are they? What are their requirements? What are their needs? What's to be achieved in the module? Why are we studying this? And in particular, in the context of UDL, Why are we doing it this particular way? Now, we have learning outcomes on modules, but also there are the skills required for project work and for further study and further, some go on to do research, some go out and work in the workplace. There's also a very important piece on where and when and how this is to be achieved. And I did this myself, and then I went to the students and said, okay, why have you chosen this? Because some of them choose it as an elective, and that's a very important part of it. So the who of learning. Andrew Brownlee last week in his opening address talked about this really, really well. You know, we have to look at who we have in front of us. And great line from one of my colleagues, I teach whoever is in front of me. I don't worry too much about what they are. We have to teach everybody. We don't teach to an average, you know. So some of our students choose this as an elective and some have to be there. And the group I had were 3 groups of students all doing different programs with some similarities, but a lot of difference. So some had to work in groups, some were choosing to do it as an elective on their own. There were several students with learning disabilities. We also had floaters that Frederick Fove was talking about last week. They were students who are not necessarily registered, but do have issues, and these need to be accommodated and looked after. There were several students English not their first language. In addition, and this is through talking with the peer triad, there are students with other things in their lives, mature students with families, part-time students in part-time employment, also assessment, and this module is 100% continuously assessed. So these things have to be taken into consideration. We have to talk to our colleagues about what's going on in other modules in the program and look at it at program level. The student voice. I'm involved in a project currently in TU Dublin on a curriculum framework. So we were doing a lot of data collection from our students on what they thought about teaching, learning and assessment. So as the module is 100% assessed, we were asking students, how is teaching, learning and assessment for you? What are we doing well and what would you change given a choice? So the group I had, the 3 groups I had together, were very, very vocal about this. They were great, in fact. You can see from the graphic here that they gave me a lot of feedback in class and verbally as well on what they would like to change and how they would like to input. They did appreciate getting input from the outset on this module and also had a lot to say about assessment and assignment, the mode of engagement, how stuff was being represented to them and how they got to submit and engage with assignments. So that was very helpful to me. Now for the review, there were 4 assignments, and initially looking at this, trying to be very, I suppose, engineering about it and planning it all out, I said, okay, I'm going to do assignment 1 as I'm going to do different modes of representation and engagement, and then maybe another assignment, then I'll do the action and expression. It didn't quite work out that way because I was actively engaging the students in the process. So for assignment 1, I said I would incorporate brainstorming and mind mapping using online collaborative tools because this is what the students were asking for and they wanted to engage with using that type of work to facilitate group work and also so they could work online at home and more flexibly, engage more flexibly with the work. But they also wanted to use written submission as well because that's typically how projects are written up. Literature review is normally written submission. We said we'd leave that as it was. However, what happened was the work in assignment 1 bleeds into assignment 2, so that didn't quite work out that way. Assignment 3, then there were choices of written posters and short video submissions, and I created resources then to support all that work. So this is what assignment 1 looked like in practice. The Moodle page resources were put up and we use mind mapping. I love mind mapping. I've used it for years and it was great fun actually to be able to share this with students and say, well, this is when, I'm given a big open project to do and I don't really know where to start. I just start brainstorming and mind mapping. We did do work using pen and paper as well, and students who were more comfortable with that or using a whiteboard did that, and then others used the online. Ultimately, the whole class, I think everyone in the class used the online resource that I put up because it was collaborative, it was free to use, and it was easy to use and very accessible, so they did that. They also, I needed ultimately to put up how-to videos, and what I did find with this, although YouTube is this great resource and it's free and accessible, it is a little bit of a rabbit hole. You can go into YouTube and start looking up how-tos and end up there an hour later and you still haven't found what you need to do to get an assignment done. So I found very short, less than a minute screencasts of how to share a link out to your colleagues or how to incorporate a link into a Word document. worked much better in order to assist students to get assignments done. These were final year students and needed to get and had a lot of assignment work, so that worked a lot better. What I did find I had to change was initially was representation and engagement, but students actually asked for me to include mind maps in their assessment. Using Coggle was the mind map software that they used, and this is a gallery, and this is just a quick look at some of their work, and you can see it's as individual as each of the students that used it. The student voice, it's hard to summarize all of this, but if I were to do it thematically, it would be more flexible, easier to use. We used it in other assignments, facilitated group work, and we could focus on information and synthesis instead of yet more academic writing and more writing. Assignment 3, this is where really my hands came away from this and the students took charge. I put up just a couple of links. Most of the links you can see on this slide to resources, the students came up with themselves. Some of them were using these already in other projects and even things outside the college that they might have used in their part-time employment. And they suggested them to me on a forum on Moodle, and I put them up. We did some discussions in class on posters, on good poster design. Pinterest is very, very good for this type of graphic design type work as well. And off they went. I have to say, this was coming up to Christmas, this assignment, and they just took off. And just showing this work is really amazing. This is one of the favorite slides I've ever put together on any piece of work. And I'm teaching over 20 years, so this is really, really did blow me away on the variability, the diversity of the work they did, and the amount of effort they put into this, and how much they enjoyed it, because the feedback was really good. Again, variable. Some of them were looking for marks for design on their work, which wasn't actually part of the assessment rubric. And things I've learned, talking with colleagues, we have a great community of practice here, and just to run through it, if I were giving anyone advice on engaging with the UDL framework or looking at this, I agree with what the other two presenters made. You don't have to change everything. Take it slow, be measured about it, reflect on your practice, review it. It doesn't have to be the entire module. Pieces of it are enough because you'll find it will flow. It's not always about technology, funny thing to say, in these times at the moment, and certainly after what happened earlier. But to me, the message that I learned, the biggest learning for me, was that it was more about learner agency than it was actually about the technology or anything I did. Giving the students the power, if you like, and relinquishing your own power. I think it was Dara said that last week, was the most important thing about this process for me. It was engaging them with it, explaining what UDL was, and explaining how important it was that their voice was heard and listened to and acted upon was the most important piece. Choice and examples, but not too much or too many, because of their agency and their voice was very important. Considering all cohorts and their context, what's going on in their lives, is very important too. Some of the comments that came back, and I couldn't represent them all here, were very telling to me during the process and afterwards for this. If teaching is all about communication, good teaching to me is all about collaboration, and the best form of teaching for me is about forming communities of practice. Etienne had a great presentation last week about this, and I had an opportunity while doing this to contribute to an open ebook on doing mind maps, and the students actually contributed some of theirs, the links to theirs for this, and that to me was the absolute pinnacle of doing this work, that we could do that work together as a part of this, and there's a link to that at the end of the presentation. The main change agent in this is not always the lecturer. I really should cross out always and say that it is rarely, if this is done right, it's rarely the lecturer, and it's the students are driving this if you're working in partnership with them. And that's the main learning as well for me. It's about agency, and it's about them working in partnership with you. And the last two pieces of advice I think to anyone I give is be agile, be prepared to change midstream with them if you can, and be patient. Not something I'm blessed with, but it's something I really did learn in this. And the final thing I'd say then is be patient. The very final thing I'd say, which is 11, is enjoy it. Previous presenter, this was one of the best experiences I had in presenting. So That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was marvelous. I loved your message. Again, just relating to the context that we're currently in, um, to consider all cohorts, consider all contexts, to be agile, to be patient. I think as educators look to move their teaching online, move their assessment online, all of those things need to be considered, and they have to remember that when they're struggling in their own homes to get connections, to do presentations, to do everything else, that the same thing is happening for their students. So that we need to be empathetic and we need to be flexible and we need to give our students choice within that. Terry, could you maybe unmute yourself there, your video and audio, please, if you get a chance? What did you think,
Okay,
Terry?
Catherine, once again. And
Actually,
I think
Terry,
this was
if I might stop you there for 1 second, Terry. Actually, first of all, is to teach you the the method of clapping your hands as a member of the deaf community, which I think is kind of useful for all online meetings now. So
okay.
you can use that.
Quick learner.
And second is actually just while Terry is giving some comments there, I'm just going to ask people to pick up their devices, and if they have that secondary device on hand, a mobile phone if it's handy, or if you don't have a secondary device, pop open a new tab and just jump to menti.com. That's menti.com, and use the code 521156 to begin, just to give us some answers to this question. And what we're asking is, give us one word that you feel sums up the UDL practice showcased by our 3 finalists today. So one word that you feel sums it up, and I think we're giving you 3 opportunities to put in one word. So if you want to talk away there, Terry, well, let's drop it in.
Okay, Catherine, so well done. And I suppose the module that you chose is a difficult one. It has the same format in almost every institution in higher education. And I think some of the ideas that you pulled together for that will be really, really useful, to give others ideas and how they can make it more interesting and more applicable to their students. I loved your start saying that the most important thing was making sure that the language was accessible to the students. I think sometimes we forget just how important that is. I loved the way you took time to actually work with your students and get them, and you talked to them about the module. It's not something that happens a lot and says, well, actually you have choice, you have control. How are we going to do this? I thought that was really, really fantastic. And then your innovative use of technology, getting the students to engage, to build their own digital capacity as part of this module, I thought was really, really good. And the 1 minute videos, because I think that's about the attendance. If you can't do it in a minute, sometimes you don't get opportunities to do much more. And the quality of the posters that you showcase there from the assessments actually showed, I think, the engagement of the students and what they were actually doing. You could see from the level of work they produced just how engaged they must have been. And of course, I loved, the forum loves 10 things. I loved your 10 things that you actually took the time afterwards to reflect and to identify 10 things. So well done. Fantastic job.
Thanks, Catherine. Listen, really appreciate your work there. And also, actually, Terry, if you wouldn't mind staying on the line for a moment, we're going to go back in a few minutes' time and have a look at some of the feedback coming back from the room and maybe just have a quick chat about it before we leave. Just before we do that, if anybody's still looking for the code, it's menti.com. You can see it on the bottom of the screen here, menti.com 521156 to participate in that, and we'll go back to the results shortly. Just want to flag some upcoming webinars that might be of interest to you. Ahead is actually running a kind of special COVID response webinar around moving inclusively to online assessment and teaching. That's taking place next Thursday at 2:30. And what we're going to do in that webinar is we're going to get views from students with the challenges of online learning. We're going to get views from the disability office, in disability officers across the HE system, to see what are the issues that are being raised with them from students and educators. Then we're going to get some educator views themselves and an expert on teaching and learning, and we'll participate in that, and also some expertise from an e-learning accessibility folks, who basically give us some tips on moving online and accessibly and inclusively. So that's taking place next Thursday, and then actually the next session as part of the AHEAD conference next Friday is concerning 2 topics: one, communities of learning, and study abroad. So there's 3 contributions taking place as part of that. You can see our first one is tackling the challenges facing higher education using design thinking to create co-communities of practice. So I like that idea. Co-communities, again, relates a little bit to what Catherine was saying there, that we are our role is as guiders rather necessarily than sort of sages on the stage. Inclusive mobility, how can we make study abroad more accessible? Some of my colleagues from ahead are going to address that, and that's relation to an EU project that we're involved in. And the final one, shifting to the UDL mindset in workplace learning design. So this isn't just about higher ed or FET, you're also looking at CPD in the workplace there as well. So just going to shift now, Terry, just before we, as a way to end this session, just going to have a look at our mentee and just to get an idea of what some people in the audience are feeding back on. You can see, because you can't see the screen, just the big words coming back here: innovative, inspiring, empowering, inclusive. And we can see things like accessibility, flexibility, and choice coming up strong there. Any thoughts based on that?
My thoughts. I love the black motivating at the left-hand side. And I think, and the motivating and the empowering means that there are people listening here today that are going to go away and reflect on their own practice and do wonderful things as well. Enabling is another word. Useful. Well, if that's the impact that these three presentations had, maybe we should do it more than once a year.
Maybe so, yeah. Maybe we should do it once a week, Terry. I'll see you next.
Well, it's very interesting. It's very interesting when you actually see practice and you see practitioners on the ground reflecting on what they're doing, making a change, seeing the impact of that change. It is actually the best professional development that every person can actually get.
Yeah, and that's very much been echoed here in the chat. Lots of thanks coming towards all three presenters. So people are giving a lot of love in the room, I think, for what they've seen, the work of the three presenters here today. And I think it's going to prove energizing for a lot of people who've come. So I'm delighted with that. So just to say what's happening next, Terry, unfortunately, your work is not done for the day. It is Friday afternoon, but you're not finished yet. So Terry is going to go into a private judges meeting with Mark and Michelle. Mark and Michelle, if you're on the line there, you can start heading over to that meeting link now. So Terry will go into that session and the three judges will deliberate, will decide on a winner. We will announce that winner on Monday via social media. And actually the winner, which I should have said before, the winner receives the John Kelly Award itself, which unfortunately is in shutdown in our office in UCD and we couldn't actually get access to for today, but we will send it on to a winner. But the other exciting thing is that the winner also receives €1,000 worth of professional development in this area. And that we talked a lot about flexibility. We're very flexible in how that professional development is considered in terms of that could be if you want to go to a conference abroad that's a relation to this area. If you'd like to do another follow-up course, the winner can then invest in that too. So, and we're really delighted to be able to do that. So I'd like to thank everybody here today. And just to say, if you want to continue this conversation, #ahead2020 is the hashtag for the conference. We'd love to hear more from you on Twitter. In fact, it'd be really useful to us if you did enjoy the session here today to pay it some compliments on Twitter so that we can get more people through the door for the remaining sessions. That would be very useful. And just to say, I really appreciate everyone taking the time to join us because I know it is such a busy time and there's a lot happening at home for many people as well. I know some of our finalists here today have several children in the background sort of demanding their time too. So I really appreciate that everyone could take the time to join us. And what I might do is just leave that Mentimeter word cloud up and sign off and leave it there for people to explore a bit more if they want to have a closer look at it. So thank you, Terry. And I will see you.
Well done, everybody, again.
Yes, to our three finalists, just so bowled over by your work and well done to everybody. Take care and I hope everybody has a nice weekend.